Most people don't fail because they lack strength. They fail because they lose themselves the moment emotion takes control. When pressure hits, they stop thinking and start reacting. Imagine watching someone completely correct in an argument, yet they end up losing it. They had truth, data, and logic, but as soon as tension rose, their composure collapsed, their tone sharpened, their movements turned erratic, and just like that, their credibility dissolved. It wasn't their ideas that failed them. It was their inability to stay centered when challenged. Every confrontation you face, whether with another person or within yourself, is not a test of intellect. It's a test of emotional control. Can you keep your clarity when chaos knocks at your door? Can you remain calm while your pulse is racing and your pride is screaming to fight back? The one who can do that wins. Not just the argument, but respect, trust, and the quiet kind of power that makes others bend without realizing why. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He saw rulers rise with armies and crumble because of temper. He studied the collapse of kingdoms and discovered a universal law of dominance. Control yourself first, or lose control of everything else. Power doesn't belong to the loud, the proud, or the dramatic. It belongs to the steady, the one who holds still while the world trembles. So today, we're going to uncover the anatomy of calm power, how to remain unshaken when confronted, how your body betrays your emotions before your mouth opens, and how to turn pressure itself into your greatest ally. Say this to yourself before we begin. I remain unshaken. Say it like you mean it, because by the end of this, you'll understand why that phrase carries more force than any defense, any excuse, or any speech you could give. One, people follow composure, not explanations. Here's the misunderstanding that destroys most people in moments of confrontation. They believe victory depends on perfect words. They rehearse lines, gather evidence, and prepare verbal ammunition like soldiers before a war. But the truth? In heated moments, words lose their weight. People aren't analyzing your logic as much as they're absorbing your energy. They're not listening, they're feeling. They're watching how your eyes move, how your breath changes, how steady your voice remains. Your body tells them more than your words ever could. When your tone shakes or your eyes dart, people sense weakness, and the mind instinctively equates calm with credibility. Machiavelli once wrote, "Men are governed by appearances as much as by reality." He didn't mean appearances matter a little. He meant they define perception itself. If you appear composed, you are believed. If you appear rattled, you are dismissed, even when you're right. Picture two people arguing. One has all the facts, but stammers and fidgets. The other is calm, deliberate, and still. Who do you instinctively trust? The second, not because they're correct, but because they look like they know something the other doesn't. Calmness signals mastery. Agitation signals insecurity. That's why preparation isn't only about what you'll say, it's about how you'll show up. When challenged, your goal is not to defend, but to remain still. A calm tone can make even a vague answer sound wise. People naturally give patience and respect to those who appear emotionally grounded, but they withdraw both from anyone who seems frantic or reactive. Think of a job interview when you're hit with an unexpected question. You can either panic, ramble, fill silences, talk too fast, and watch your composure crumble, or you can breathe, pause, and respond slowly. That's a good question. Let me think about it for a moment. That single moment of calmness changes everything. You look thoughtful, confident, and in control, even if your answer is still forming. The difference isn't intellect, it's presence. And this applies everywhere, from relationships to boardrooms, in arguments with your partner, conversations with your boss, or moments of public criticism. Your stability matters more than your logic. Words can be debated, but composure commands. The person who can stay centered becomes the emotional anchor in the room. People will disagree with you and still respect you, simply because you didn't flinch. Steadiness invites trust. Nervousness breeds doubt. To control your body, and your mind will follow. It's easy to say, stay calm. Doing it when adrenaline floods your system is another story. That's why true control begins with the body. Your body is a mirror that reveals your mind. You can say, I'm fine, but if your jaw tightens and your shoulders rise, everyone knows you're not. Humans read body language faster than words in just a few seconds. Shaky hands signal fear. Rapid blinking signals discomfort. Crossing your arms screams defensiveness. People are constantly decoding these signals, often unconsciously, to decide whether to respect or dismiss you. Machiavelli observed that men judge more by the eye than by the hand, meaning people believe what they see more than what they hear. The way you stand, breathe, and move communicates your power long before you speak. Most people try to calm their thoughts first, but that's backwards. The mind listens to the body. When your body acts calm, your brain assumes safety and begins to relax. So control begins here with physical cues. First, your breathing. When tension spikes, your breathing becomes short and fast. You start inhaling through the chest, signaling your brain that danger is near. This activates your fight or flight mode, shutting down your rational brain and letting fear drive your reactions. That's why in arguments, smart people say dumb things. Their prefrontal cortex is offline. To reverse this, breathe deeply from your abdomen, in through the nose, out through the mouth, slow and steady. Within seconds, your pulse drops. Your mind receives the message, we're safe, and only then can logic return. Second, your posture. Stand or sit with grounded stillness. Not stiff or aggressive, just stable. Keep your shoulders relaxed but upright. If standing, plant your feet evenly. If seated, sit tall. Keep your movements minimal and intentional. Fidgeting, tapping your fingers, shifting your weight, adjusting your hair, all announce nervous energy. Stillness, on the other hand, announces power. When you move deliberately, people subconsciously register control, and that steadiness begins to seep into your own psyche. Third, your voice. Your voice is the bridge between your inner and outer world. When your emotions spike, your voice speeds up, rises in pitch, or breaks. Control it deliberately. Speak 20 to 30% slower than normal. Lower your tone slightly. Let pauses breathe between your sentences. Silence, when intentional, radiates authority. Most people can't handle silence. They rush to fill it. Let them. Every word they spill in that panic is information you can use. A calm voice doesn't just command attention, it absorbs attention. It forces others to tune in. Here's the fascinating part. Calm body language doesn't just protect your composure, it destabilizes others. When someone yells or attacks and you remain unmoved, they feel off balance. They expected a reaction, and your stillness denies them emotional control. It makes them wonder, why isn't this person angry? Do they know something I don't? In that instant, power shifts. Machiavelli understood this dynamic deeply. The one who governs their body governs the battlefield. Real strength is quiet. Real control is presence, not aggression. So, the next time tension rises, remember the formula. Breathe slow, hold posture, control tone, lead with your body, and your mind, and everyone else's will follow. Three, detachment is your secret weapon. Nothing clouds judgment faster than taking things personally. Someone questions your competence, and immediately your chest tightens, your ego flares, and logic disappears. You're no longer solving a problem, you're protecting your pride. That's when most people lose, because once emotion drives you, strategy dies. Detachment doesn't mean apathy. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you refuse to hand over control of your mind to anyone else's words. It means you can pause, even in the heat of confrontation, and view the moment objectively, not as an insult, but as information. Machiavelli once wrote, a wise man acts as he must, not as he feels. And that line is the key. The weak react to emotion. The strong act on necessity. When you act as you must, you prioritize outcome over ego. You ask, what response gets me what I actually want? Usually, that means calmness. Imagine you're in a meeting, presenting a project you've poured weeks into. Suddenly, a colleague, let's call him David, publicly tears it down. This idea won't work. We've done this before. You have two paths. Path one, react, snap back, defend your work. Your tone sharpens, your words quicken. If you'd read the full plan, David, you'd know this isn't the same. Now the tension fills the room. You might be right, but you've lost authority because you've lost composure. Path two, detach. Recognize that David's comment isn't an attack on your worth. It's an opportunity to gather clarity. So you nod and say, that's fair. What part do you think won't work? Suddenly the energy shifts. The tension drops. Either David clarifies a valid concern, giving you insight, or he stumbles, revealing weakness in his critique. Either way, you win, not by fighting, by staying above the chaos. Detachment gives you space, the most powerful resource in any confrontation. Space to breathe before reacting, space to evaluate before speaking, space to ask yourself, will what I'm about to say move me closer to my goal, or just make me feel better temporarily? Most of the time, emotional reactions only satisfy your pride and sabotage your purpose. Think of all the times you said something impulsive, then regretted it later. That was the price of attachment, of letting emotions drive the wheel. Once words escape, they can't be retrieved. Detachment acts as your emotional guardrail. It doesn't suppress emotion, it disciplines it. When you master detachment, you don't become cold, you become clear. You can still feel everything, but you're no longer ruled by what you feel. You can stand in the fire and still make rational choices. That's rare, and people sense it. They may not understand it, but they'll respect it. Because in a world where everyone reacts instantly, the one who pauses, observes, and chooses with intention is untouchable. So remember this, in every conflict, power is not about volume, victory, or aggression. It's about composure. People follow the one who remains grounded when everyone else fractures. Steadiness builds trust. Control builds authority. Detachment builds strategy. You don't need to dominate others to win. You just need to dominate yourself. When you master that, no confrontation can shake you, no criticism can break you, and no chaos can control you. Say it again. I remain unshaken because the calm mind doesn't just survive the storm, it commands it. True mastery begins when calmness becomes your second nature, when steadiness is no longer something you try to maintain, but something that simply exists within you. At the beginning, this feels almost impossible. You have to consciously remind yourself to breathe before reacting, to pause before speaking, to pull yourself back when emotions start to rise like fire. It's work, uncomfortable, frustrating, and unnatural at first, but like all disciplines, repetition reshapes the mind. Over time, what once took effort becomes instinct. You start catching yourself mid-emotion, that flash of irritation, that wave of pride, and instead of reacting, you simply observe it. You pause. You detach. You choose your response. And in that split second between stimulus and reaction lies the birthplace of all personal power. That's where the untouchable live, in the pause. When you master that space, you stop being a puppet pulled by your emotions. You're no longer the person who blurts out regret, who lashes out, who tries to win meaningless moments. You become deliberate, strategic, controlled, because when you choose your response, you control the outcome. Picture this. Someone insults you publicly, questions your intelligence, mocks your work, challenges your character. Instinct screams at you to defend yourself, to fire back, to reclaim your pride. But what if you didn't? What if, instead, you smiled faintly and said, that's an interesting perspective. Thank you for sharing. Then you moved on as if their words were air. That's not weakness. That's power at its purest. Because nothing threatens the manipulator more than indifference. They wanted you rattled, loud, emotional. Instead, you stayed composed. Now they look foolish, desperate, childish, exposed. And you look unbothered, in control, and above it all. That's the art Machiavelli hinted at centuries ago. The one who governs their emotions governs every situation. Detachment breeds clarity. Clarity produces better judgment. Better judgment leads to outcomes others can't reach. Every confrontation becomes a chessboard. The emotional player moves impulsively, reacting to every jab. The detached player waits, watches, strikes only when it matters. So when you feel the pressure building, when someone challenges your worth or questions your truth, do not defend, do not explain. Observe, step back, see the bigger picture, understand what's actually happening beneath the noise. Most attacks aren't about you, they're about control. When you refuse to react, you remove their power entirely. And in that silence, the aggressor begins to unravel. You win without saying a word. Now, let's move deeper. Calmness isn't just self defense, it's a weapon of influence. When chaos erupts, voices raised, tempers flaring, energy spiraling, the calm person instantly becomes magnetic, while others lose themselves. Your steadiness stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. People naturally look to you. Why? Because calm feels safe. It feels like leadership. Even those with higher status instinctively defer to the one who appears most composed. That's the silent hierarchy Machiavelli studied. Real authority doesn't come from titles, it emerges from presence. Imagine a heated business meeting. Everyone's arguing, interrupting, emotions boiling. But there's one person, you, sitting still, composed, listening, occasionally speaking in a measured tone, without even trying. The room begins to follow your rhythm. Voices lower, the chaos slows. Eyes turn toward you for direction. You didn't demand authority, you became it. That's leverage born from calmness. It works everywhere. In relationships, when your partner yells, but you stay patient. In family disputes, when others argue, but you speak softly and deliberately. At work, when coworkers panic, but you remain grounded. Each time you stay calm, people start to associate you with control, reliability, leadership. You become the emotional anchor in a world addicted to reaction. And here's the truth most never realize. People don't actually trust the smartest person in the room. They trust the most stable. They follow the one who remains centered when everyone else is falling apart. Calmness isn't passivity, it's presence. It says, I know who I am, I know what I'm doing, and I don't need to prove it. This is why calmness transforms tension into opportunity. When everyone else is drowning in emotion, your composure gives you leverage. Your stillness disrupts their chaos. People can't argue with calm. They can scream, they can insult, they can explode, but calmness starves their fire of oxygen. They'll either lower themselves to your level of reason or burn out on their own. That's the strategy of psychological dominance. Make others exhaust themselves emotionally while you remain untouched. Even in personal situations, arguments with loved ones, moments of betrayal, harsh criticism, calmness lets you see clearly. You hear what's actually being said beneath the noise. You pick up on truth instead of reacting to tone. And once emotions fade, people realize something profound. You never lost your composure. That memory sticks. They begin to see you differently, as someone who doesn't crumble under pressure, someone who leads even when wrong. But calmness alone isn't enough. Consistency is what makes it legendary. Anyone can be calm once. It's easy to play composed for a single meeting, a single argument, a single crisis. But to remain calm every time, that's when people start whispering about you. That's when your name becomes synonymous with steadiness. Nothing rattles them. They'll say, no matter what happens, they stay composed. That's not reputation by accident. That's reputation by design. And reputation, once built, does more for you than any argument ever could. When people believe you cannot be shaken, they stop trying to shake you. The emotional tactics, manipulation, pressure, all of it disappears. Why? Because it doesn't work anymore. They know anger won't move you. They know guilt won't control you. You've trained the world how to treat you. That's real power. Power that doesn't shout, doesn't demand, doesn't chase. It simply is. Think about the most composed person you've ever met. Maybe a boss, a mentor, or even a friend. The one who never loses their cool no matter what happens. How do people behave around them? Carefully, respectfully. No one dares waste their time with drama or childish games because everyone knows that person doesn't engage in nonsense. That's the armor of calmness, invisible but impenetrable. Now contrast that with the person who's always reactive, the one who snaps, yells, gets defensive, loses control over the smallest things. People might pity them, but they don't respect them. They tiptoe around them, not because of admiration, but avoidance. Emotionally unstable people drain energy. Emotionally steady people command it. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. In The Prince, he explained that a ruler who is unpredictable confuses his followers and loses their trust. But a leader who acts consistently, even when firm or harsh, earns loyalty because people value predictability. The same principle applies to you. When people know exactly what to expect from you, calm, reason, balance, they start to trust you deeply, even if they don't always agree with you. Consistency turns composure into character. At that point, calmness isn't a trick you perform, it's who you are. It becomes your identity. People introduce you that way. If there's a crisis, call them. They never panic. That reputation opens doors you didn't even know existed. Employers want it. Leaders value it. Friends depend on it. Everyone gravitates toward the person who remains stable when the ground shakes. But building that identity takes relentless commitment. You can't fake it. You can't stay calm for a few weeks and then explode once and expect your reputation to remain. One public loss of control can undo months, even years, of composure because people remember outbursts more than they remember calm. The dramatic moments define perception. So you have to make calmness not just a reaction, but a lifestyle, something you practice even when no one's watching. That doesn't mean suppressing your emotions or pretending not to feel. Real calmness isn't the absence of emotion, it's the mastery of it. You still get angry, hurt, or frustrated, but you don't let those emotions decide your next move. You feel them privately, process them wisely, but act strategically. That's emotional intelligence at its highest form, emotion acknowledged, but not obeyed. And the longer you maintain this discipline, the more it compounds. Each time you remain centered when others expect you to break, your reputation grows stronger. Each time you handle chaos with clarity, your influence deepens. Each time you walk through fire without flinching, you teach the world that nothing and no one has power over your peace. Eventually, you reach a point where your composure precedes you. People adjust their tone the moment you enter the room. They know, consciously or not, that drama won't work here. That's the final victory, when your calmness begins shaping the environment before you even speak. You've won the long game, because now your presence itself demands respect. Machiavelli once said it's better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But there's a third path, higher than both fear and affection, and that is respect. When you are unshakable, people may not fear you, and they may not adore you, but they will respect you. And respect endures long after fear fades and love shifts. Fear requires your presence to survive. Love depends on emotion to last, but respect, true respect, is permanent. It stays even when you're not in the room. So let this sink in. Calmness is not just a technique, it's an identity. Build it until it defines you, until people say your name and think of composure, until chaos comes and you meet it with stillness, until every confrontation feels like a quiet test that you've already passed 1,000 times. Power, in its purest form, is not about volume or dominance. It's about control of self, of energy, of emotion. Those who can't control themselves will always be controlled by others, but those who can remain calm, steady breathing, measured words, grounded posture, command every room they walk into. So practice it daily. When someone cuts you off in traffic, stay composed. When a coworker snaps unfairly, respond gently. When life throws challenges that test your limits, breathe deeper instead of louder. Each moment of restraint builds the fortress around your peace. Each act of composure strengthens your identity. And one day, without realizing it. You'll find that calmness is no longer something you do. It's simply who you are. The storm will rage, people will shout, situations will crumble, and you'll stand there, unmoved, not because you don't care, but because you finally understand. Nothing outside you deserves control over what's within. Repeat it now and mean it. Nothing moves me, not insults, not fear, not chaos. Nothing, because you are no longer reacting. You are ruling. You are unshaken. Prove it.